Yeah. So welcome and thanks for joining us this afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alison Moon and I'm a real estate broker here with the Satushek Team of Keller Williams. With me today is my business partner, Jen Glasinski, who will be helping out on the technical end of this call. We're recording the call and we will send you all a link to the recording so you can refer to it again if that would be helpful. So with that, why don't we get started? Next slide, please, Jen. So now is the second best time to buy. And I bet you weren't expecting me to say that, but it's true. Today's the second best time to buy. Yesterday was the best time to buy. And it doesn't matter if you ask me today or tomorrow or next week or next month when the best time to buy is, my answer will always be yesterday. So why is that? Well, in one word, equity. And we'll go into that a little more and what that is a little later. But the idea is that over time, your home increases in value. And the sooner you can get started in home ownership, regardless of market conditions and interest rates, the sooner you can gain equity in your home. And the sooner you can gain equity in your home, the sooner you'll be able to build financial security for yourself and your family. So next slide, please, Jen. Okay, so what are the things that keep aspiring homeowners from taking the plunge and buying their first home? Well, for some people, they might be waiting for a certain event to happen before they buy, like waiting for a divorce to be finalized or a kid to finish their last year at a particular school. But here's a list of the things that we most commonly hear. I'm waiting for our home prices to fall. Interest rates are too high, and I can't afford to buy a home. So let's talk about this list. Next slide, please, Jen. So I'm excuse me. I'm waiting to buy a home. I'm waiting for home prices to fall. Statistics show that nationally, over the last 30 years, home values have increased on average by about 4% per year. So let's think about that for a minute. 30 years ago would have been 1993. What's happened in our economy since 1993? We've had some pretty devastating economic events. Around 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. In 2001, we had 9/11, followed by a stock market crash in 2001 and 2002. In 2008 and 2009, we had the Great Recession when the home bubble burst, and then we've had COVID. And yet, on average, across the country, the home values have gone up by about 4% per year. Let's look at what's been happening in our area. Between January 2006 and January 2023, the median home value in Whatcom County increased by 230%. It went from $235,000 to $541,000 in 17 years. That's an average annual increase of a little more than 5%. And looking at Skagit County during the same 17-year period between January 2006 and January 2023, the median home value in Skagit County increased by nearly 240%, going from just over $214,000 to $510,000, with an average annual increase of just shy of 5.25%. And then in the past 5 years in both Whatcom County, from June 2018 to June 2023, that annual average increase has been closer to 10% per year. So housing prices locally are going up by about 5 to 10% per year. And just let me ask you this, is your income going up by that much every year? So, you know, for those of you who are waiting for another home bubble to burst, it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. Unlike in 2008, when so many people were underwater with their mortgages, and the higher interest rates today that we're seeing aren't driving the inventory up. There are very few foreclosures and short sales today. A lot of homeowners are locked into fixed rate mortgages at about 3.5%, and they don't want to sell and have to take out a new mortgage at 6.5 to 7%. So the number of homes on the market remains low, and demand is outweighing supply, so the prices are staying up. And then you add to that the fact that we don't have enough new construction in the area to keep up with housing demands. Building costs skyrocketed during COVID, and they're remaining high. I remember going to Home Depot in 2019 and paying about $2.50 for a 2x4 stud. That same piece of lumber cost about $4 the next year. And then, last week it's gone down, but still that 2x4 stud at Home Depot was $3.68. So that's almost a 50% increase just in the cost of framing studs since 2019. And you see here a quote from the Fed Chair Jerome Powell from about a month ago. He said, we now see housing putting in a bottom and maybe moving up a little bit. So it appears that the drop in home prices that everyone's been waiting for has probably already happened. So next slide, please, Jen. Okay, the next thing we hear a lot is that interest rates are too high. The last several years of really low interest rates is actually an anomaly. The rates we're seeing today are really closer to historical norms. Right now we're seeing mortgage rates at about 6.5% to 7%, right? But just for a bit of historical perspective, and some of you are probably too young to remember this, but back in the early 80s, rates hit about 18.5%. 18.5%. And right now, it's hard to find any experts out there who are predicting rate drops of any significance. So it seems that the market we're in terms of interest rates is probably the market we're going to be in for a while. So just a couple of points here. First, for those of you who are concerned about high interest rates but are renting, now look at it this way. If you're renting, none of your money is going towards building equity. Renting is like paying 100% interest. You're just not building equity. And just as a quick aside, if you're not sure what equity is, here's a quick and dirty definition. Equity is basically the difference between the value of your home and the amount of money you owe on it. So the more the home is worth and the less you owe on it, the more equity you have. And why is that important? Well, for one thing, you can borrow against that equity to do things like, pay for your kids' college education, make improvements on your home, pay off higher cost debts like credit cards. And, you might even have to pay for an unforeseen medical emergency, and home equity can come in really handy for that. Okay, so let's get back to the slide. By owning a home and paying down your mortgage and gaining equity, you're building your wealth. By renting, you're paying down your landlord's mortgage and increasing their wealth. Did you know that the average American homeowner has a net worth of about $300,000, while the average American renter has a net worth of only about $8,000? Which side of that equation do you want to be on? Another thing to consider when waiting for interest rates to drop is that as soon as they do, more people are going to qualify for mortgage loans and more people will be entering the market as buyers. And that competition is just going to push the price of homes up. And that has happened in the past and it's going to happen in the future. And finally, for some of you, if you're paying off a mortgage, you might be able to write off some or all of that mortgage interest you're paying now. Now, I'm not a licensed accountant or tax advisor, and you really should talk to your own CPA to see if this applies to you. But for some of you, this would be a way to offset the overall effect of the current interest rates. So what does tax deductible mean? Here's how Investopedia defines it. A tax deduction is an amount that you can deduct from your taxable income to lower the amount of taxes that you owe. So let me just show you an example. Next slide, please, Jen. Okay, so let's say that you and your brother-in-law both take out a 30-year loan each of you takes out a 30-year loan for $475,000 at a 6.5% interest rate. You both make the same amount of money per year, $150,000. Your loan is in the form of a mortgage secured by your home, and your brother-in-law's loan is an unsecured personal loan. You're each paying $3,002 per month. And you see there that the annual interest rate on a 6.5% 30-year loan is $30,719, at least for the first year. And let's say your accountant confirms that because of your particular tax situation, you can deduct your mortgage interest. So if you paid a total of $30,719 of interest on your mortgage, you could deduct that amount from your income of $150,000, lowering your taxable income to $119,281. Your poor brother-in-law, on the other hand, can't take that deduction because the interest he's paying is not tax deductible. So you can see that if you can deduct your mortgage interest, you're paying almost $7,000 less per year in income tax than your brother-in-law is. And if you spread that savings over an entire year, the net effect is that your mortgage isn't really costing you $3,002 per month. Instead, it's effectively costing you $2,439 per month. $3,002 minus the average monthly tax savings of $563 is $2,439. Okay, enough math. But again, you would need to talk to your CPA to see if you could deduct your mortgage interest. As I understand it, it has to do with things like whether you're taking the standard deduction or itemizing your deductions. So be sure to talk to your CPA. So to kind of sum this, the last few slides up, let's look at the true cost of waiting to buy a home. So next slide, please, Jen. So if you buy a home today for $500,000, putting $50,000 down and borrowing $450,000 at 6.5%, you're paying about $2,844 per month on your mortgage. But let's say that you want to wait till interest rates come down a bit. And let's say that about this time next year, they've dropped to 5.75%. Well, over that year, the value of today's $500,000 home has gone up by about 6%, meaning it'll now cost you $530,000. And your down payment will be bigger. You'll have to borrow more money, and your monthly payment will only be about $61 less than if you bought today. Meanwhile, you'll have lost out on the opportunity to gain $30,000 in equity simply by owning the home. The passage of 1 year's time would have been worth about $30,000. And again, you have to ask, how much do you make in a year? You could have had $30,000 in your pocket without doing a thing other than owning a home. And guess what? If and when those interest rates drop, you can refinance. You can get that 5.75% fixed rate loan, and you can drop your monthly payments by $61. Is it worth losing $30,000 in equity in a year for $61 a month savings? Next slide, please, Jen. Oh, but I can't afford to buy a home right now. So if you haven't talked to a lender or several lenders, you may be surprised. There are a lot of packages out there that the various lenders can offer. They actually want to loan you money. That's the business they're in. And it's way safer to take that mortgage out now than it was 15 or 20 years ago, because the lenders have much stricter regulations that they have to follow now in terms of not getting people into mortgages that they can't afford. That lesson was hopefully learned in 2007, 2008. A lender, can help you determine if you qualify for any of the various loan programs that are out there. Like there are first-time home buyer loans, there are VA loans if you've served in the military, USDA loans, and so on and so forth. There are even, down payment programs that you can combine with some of these types of loans that will help you with your down payment. And if you have a little extra cash up front, you might be able to do an interest rate buy down where you pay a little more at the beginning of the loan to get a lower interest rate for the life of the loan. Some lenders offer low or no down loans. There are so many options out there. And if you don't think you can afford to buy a home, please go talk to a lender. And if you need a referral, please contact me after the call and I'll give you some names and numbers. We'll have my contact information up at the end of the presentation. I often tell people that if they can buy today, they're going to be able to lock themselves into a cost of living that they can afford. If you're renting, your rent will increase. But if you can get into a mortgage that you can afford, especially if it's a fixed rate mortgage, you can lock yourself into a cost of living that you can afford. And the only way that cost is going to move is down. Once the rates drop, just refinance. So let me just tell you a quick little personal story. My folks bought their first home in 1965 for $26,000 on a VA loan. They had no idea how they were going to make the monthly payments of $92. But they did. They both worked and they made their payments, and they sold the house in 1984 for $182,000. So they owned it for 19 years and it increased in value from $26,000 to $182,000. And you'd be right to guess that over time, with the fixed rate mortgage and payments of $92 per month, as my folks' incomes increased, it became easier and easier for them to make those payments. So let's move to the next slide, please, Jen. Oh, I think we're missing a slide. Let's see. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to just wrap this up with this last slide. And this just kind of sums up what we've been talking about. This shows you how much wealth you could potentially build by owning a home. And this just covers the first year. So if you bought a home for $500,000 and it appreciated by 4% per year, remember, we're seeing much more rapid appreciation locally, but we'll just use the national average of 4% for this illustration. Then you've gained $20,000 in equity in just the first year, since the house will have increased in value to $520,000. So keep in mind that the next year, it's not going to be another 4% gained on the original the original $500,000. It'll be 4% gained on the $520,000 and so on. And if you have a 30-year mortgage for $475,000 at 6.5%, you'll have paid, $5,309 against the principal amount of the loan in that first year. And again, keep in mind that at first, more of your monthly payment goes toward interest than principal. Over the course of the loan, that ratio is going to flip, so that every month you're paying less in interest and more against the principal of the loan. Okay, so $5,309 in principal that first year. Then if you're one of those folks who's able to deduct your mortgage interest, and if you're in the 22% tax bracket, which seems to be where most of us are, your potential income tax savings for the year is $6,758. So just by owning a home and paying your mortgage every month in the first year, you could increase your wealth by anywhere between $27,309, which takes into account just the appreciation and principal paid on the mortgage, and $32,067 if you can take the tax deduction. So that's pretty significant. And I can't imagine anyone would pass up an opportunity like that if they can possibly act on it. Okay, so let's go to the last slide, please, Jen. So that wraps up. Helpful, but so please give me a call or send me an email if you'd like to talk more about what we've gone over here. I'd love to have the opportunity to sit down with each and every one of you to talk about your particular situation and how I might be able to help you to buy a home so that you can start gaining equity and wealth and security for yourself and your family. So thanks again for joining us. I hope you got a lot out of this and you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.